Hello, fancy seeing you here again to this hour. So in today's video I'm going to talk to you guys, well, this is a slightly more personal video for me, and this is why I quit teaching. The first 5 years of my teaching, I was teaching in further education colleges, and this is just really to give you a little bit of context. I'm not going to go through my entire back history of teaching because that would be super boring, but basically during that time I was freelancing and teaching at the same time, but I was predominantly teaching. So I was teaching most of the time, and then I would do bits and bobs of freelance in between, and it was quite good because it allowed me to obviously learn the ropes of teaching, and it gave me a really good steady income and was nice and secure. And it was also the time when I was able to get all of my teaching qualifications, because in the UK, if you want to teach at a college, or if you want to teach at a university, or really if you want to kind of pretty much teach anywhere, you do have to meet certain requirements and have certain qualifications. So I spent those years getting those qualifications whilst I was sort of learning on the job, if you know what I mean. And then as time went on, I was doing more and more freelance work. So then the opportunity came up for me to quit my college job and go to lecture in the university, and that was more of a 50-50 split. So I was teaching my students half of the week and I was freelancing the other half of the week, so it was a little bit more of a balanced kind of split between the two. I went into teaching because I'd always wanted to be a teacher. A lot of people join teaching careers, or they start teaching. Well, people do it for loads of different reasons, and they're all valid and they're all fine. But I always wanted to be a teacher. It was always in my life plan. And when I first trained as a makeup artist, I would always say to people, oh, in the future, I'll teach makeup. You know, that was like a goal that I had always in the plan, kind of going forward. For me, it was just something that I really wanted to do and I was kind of passionate about. I'd been fortunate enough to go to college, uni and private courses, and had lots of different teaching experiences. So for me personally, being able to provide good quality teaching was something I was really passionate about. And I'm not going to go into this too much because I feel like it's got, it requires a whole other level of explanation. But basically around the time of my early sort of 20s and late teens, I got a medical diagnosis which basically meant that I had to reevaluate the time frames with which I was doing everything in. So around that time I spent a lot of time in hospital, and I was having a lot of different types of therapies and needed medications for all sorts of different things, and that really exasperated my kind of focus and made me bring the timeline forward, let's put it like that. So I made the decision that it was something I really wanted to do, to be a makeup teacher, and I didn't want or know if I had the luxury of the time to wait as I had originally thought. So if we sort of fast forward to about 3 or 4 years ago, so I started working in the university, and at this time I'm now working sort of 50-50 split. And what that allowed me to do was do lots and lots of different freelance jobs. I was doing things that I hadn't done before, working in different kind of genres than I'd worked before, and that was just because I had the time and I could take on bigger and different projects than when I had been basically teaching the majority of the week. And what that did was that highlighted to me very quickly that the industry had moved on very, very significantly, and that the type of work was different and the products were changing, and that the platforms were completely different, which meant that the requirements for the makeup artist was different, and there's just the kind of landscape of the job had changed a great deal. And that sort of brought into stark contrast for me that there was a lot of things that was happening in the industry that I just didn't know about. And that started to really plague me when I was teaching. So I suddenly was worried and concerned that possibly the stuff I was delivering for my students wasn't the most contemporary, wasn't the most up to date. And that was something that I felt quite or found quite difficult to make peace with. It was something that made me question my teaching ability a great deal. Just for a little bit of, just to be completely clear, and for a little bit of, you know, context, I do still teach. So I teach predominantly as a freelancer. So I teach private courses, very specific days, very specific things, but I'm no longer contracted, and I haven't actually been contracted as a teacher for about 12 months, just coming up to 12 months. So just to be clear, I do still teach, but it's just in a different capacity. And part of the reason for that is because I absolutely love it. Being a makeup teacher and being a teacher in general is without a doubt one of the best things that I've ever done, and it still is one of my favourite places to be in the classroom with the students, with my hands in buckets of goo, you know, while we're learning and we're talking and we're chatting and we're sharing ideas. And I love looking at their work and just talking about new product releases with them. It is just something that I adore doing, and I hope that any student I've ever had, and I've had a lot of them, would be able to back me up on the fact that I am incredibly passionate about teaching and I love it. And with that being said, it wasn't an easy decision to give that up. It actually was very, very hard, and it weighed very heavily on me. I made the decision that I was going to quit teaching quite a bit before I actually left. So when I knew that I kind of couldn't do it anymore and I kind of couldn't keep up with it, I made the decision that I was going to leave. And then I didn't actually leave for a good couple of months because I wanted to have the minimum impact on the students as possible. So I made sure that I saw out that academic year, I made sure that the students' work got marked, and I made sure that everything was kind of tied up the best that it could be when I left, which was difficult because I knew it was the best thing to do for the students, but it was very, very hard to not have that like personable goodbye with them, and to not be able to sort of explain my reasons for going. And I think that it does kind of leave it open for, you know, oh, I wasn't happy and I didn't like the job and this had happened and I'd fell out with so-and-so, and none of that was true at all. I absolutely loved my job. So at this point, just to kind of jump back a little bit, so at this point I'm working 50% of the time at the uni, and then I'm freelancing 50% of the time. And you might be thinking, well, surely that freelance time where I'm out in industry is keeping me up to date for when I'm at the uni. And while you're absolutely right, that was a great balance technically. The problem is that my own personal health was suffering a great deal. So again, I don't want to go down this road too deeply, but I was finding the physical challenge of teaching half of the week and freelancing the other half of the week extremely difficult. The impact on my personal life and on my health was becoming a real cause for concern. And I think that the students, no one ever mentioned it or said anything, but I think even the students kind of started to notice at the time that, you know, I wasn't really taking care of myself. I always looked tired, I was always a mess, and I was taking painkillers constantly. And what I was finding was that I wasn't bringing my best energy to the classroom, and I wasn't bringing my best energy to the freelance work because it was divided. And then when I wasn't freelancing and I wasn't teaching, I was in bed, I was ill, I was sick. And that couldn't continue. I knew it couldn't continue. It couldn't continue for me personally, and it kind of wasn't fair on anybody else that I was affecting sort of on a wider kind of, you know, spectrum really, from friends, family, students. I knew that kind of couldn't go on. And I've never been a blagger, you know, I've never been somebody who could pretend I know what I'm talking about. I'm just not that person. Even if I wanted to be, I'm just not that person. You know, if I don't know something, I have to go and find it out. I can't do that thing of going, oh yeah, I'll say yes and figure it out later. I just can't do that. I've never been able to do it. So, you know, if I gave up the freelance work and just focused on the teaching, which obviously would be the much safer job, then I felt like I'd just be blagging my students every day, because I knew that I was missing what was actually happening in industry. I wasn't actually bringing them the most up-to-date stuff. It would be a blag, and I just couldn't do that. I couldn't do it to them and I couldn't do it to myself. So just to give you a bit of an idea what I mean when I say about, you know, not being authentic and not being able to blag. When I started, God, this is all over the place, isn't it? Good luck if you follow this. When I started teaching in the college, I was teaching MVQ level 2, and during that time it was really popular to work in a salon. In fact, it had kind of just blown up. So the students coming through were often doing like media makeup courses, but they didn't really want to do makeup on films or anything. They wanted to get their own salons, and they wanted to rent chairs in salons, and amazingly a lot of them have gone on to be very successful at doing that. You know, I've got some really successful former students that have salons, and I am incredibly proud of them. I have to say it really is the best thing about teaching, is getting to, you know, ride high on other people's success. But yeah, so that had just kind of got really popular then, and students would talk about working in salons and getting these, you know, starting these businesses and taking on these clients for night outs and events and races and blah, blah, blah. And I'd never done that because it wasn't a thing. You know, when I trained, that wasn't a thing. You didn't get your makeup done for a night out. You just didn't. But now you did. So I got a job in a salon. I rented a chair on Saturdays for about 4 years in a salon because I needed to know that when I went in and taught them, I could say, this is what your clients are going to ask for, or this is what it's going to be like, or financially this is what you need to do, or this is the best product for this, or, you know, I had to know what they needed to know. So I did leave, obviously. I left in the summer and didn't return in September, and that was really, really strange and weird, and was the first time in a long time that I hadn't been working on a September to September calendar, so my little brain was like melting out of my ears, very confused. But I was very successful and very fortunate. I worked with some amazing clients, and I've had incredible experiences, and I feel very lucky because financially I was able to support myself pretty quickly. It really didn't make a great deal of difference to me financially, which is incredible because obviously teaching is a very stable career. There's holidays, there's, you know, sick pay, and I was leaving that to go into working freelance, and lots of people would think that that was crazy, but I just felt that was something that I had to do. And the experiences that I got and what I've learned from being a freelancer as a makeup artist, particularly as a full-time freelancer, has been, you know, incredibly valuable to me, and something that I definitely think will make me a better teacher in future, because at the end of the day I've still got all my teaching qualifications, I've still got all my years of teaching experience, and, you know, no one can take that away from me. But what I hope is that all this other knowledge will make me a better teacher in the long run. At the time of recording this, I am at home in lockdown. It's the very middle, I hope, or maybe the end, I hope, of the coronavirus pandemic. So I haven't actually worked on a freelance makeup job for about a month at this point of recording. And I would be lying to you if I said that I hadn't had to ask myself really difficult questions about whether I'd made the right decision to leave my very secure teaching job, particularly in the wake of this, because I would now still be working, still be being paid, and as it happens, I don't have any of that security, I don't have any of that safety net, and, you know, that puts a lot of pressure on me and my family, and that's something that I've had to, you know, really reflect upon at this particularly difficult time. There are times when I lie there at night and think, you know, I have put us in a difficult position, and I have made it harder for us by making the decisions that I made to go freelance and not having that safety net there. But ultimately, I don't regret my decision to quit teaching. Despite everything, I still believe it was the right thing to do, and I made that choice then for what I believe to be valid and good reasons, and they still stand even in light of everything that's happening. I still feel like I did it for good, with good intentions, and, you know, I will hopefully be able to come out of this and build that back up and still have, you know, great connections with clients going forward and still be able to sustain myself as a freelancer. And what's interesting is, you know, this gives me another perspective on what it's like as a freelancer. So when I'm talking to students in the future and they're just entering industry and they've got to build their clientele and, you know, it's scary and it's stressful and they've not got work, well, I will be able to understand how that feels because I myself am in that position now. So, you know, I'm hoping that it gives me a deeper level of understanding that I can bring to teaching as well. I can't regret taking that leap, and I can't regret what happens next because, again, it was a decision that I made for myself, for my health and to be better at my job. And in the time from leaving teaching and going on to just freelance, my life got better exponentially. So I suddenly wasn't so sickly, I didn't need to take as many pain meds, I suddenly had time to go to appointments that I couldn't go to before. So I was having 3 different types of therapy that I couldn't have because I couldn't take days off from teaching. You know, I've been able to travel, which I couldn't do because I could only do it outside of teaching hours. You know, I've been able to spend more time with my friends and family. I've been able to take on exciting jobs that I couldn't have done when I was teaching because they were longer. And just before we went into lockdown, that week I had been booked on a really big job, an incredible opportunity that meant I could travel. Unfortunately, it didn't actually happen, but it doesn't matter. The fact that I was able to say yes to that opportunity was a really big deal for me then, and I believe that those opportunities will show up again. And what an incredible time I've had even before this lockdown. What an incredible, you know, opportunity to experience so much and work with so many incredible people that I wouldn't have had if I'd have gone, oh well, just in case there's a pandemic or just in case this happens, you know, I need this stability. So I'm sorry if this rambled on a little bit and it might not have made any sense, but that's why I quit. Basically, that's the in-depth explanation of why I decided to leave my comfortable teaching job and become a full-time freelancer. Thanks for sticking around till the end if you have, and I will see you again very soon in the next video.